Welcome to Reseller Recap, where we talk all things reselling across multiple platforms. Join us for real-life discussions on how we crush the elusive work-life balance. Grab a coffee and join us now.
Hi guys, welcome back to another episode of Reseller Recap. Today we have a special guest with us, Yoda Yee. He is the founder of Threecolts. Welcome, Yoda.
Welcome.
We're so excited to have you. We met at Prosper, which was back February, March.
Yeah,
if memory serves. So, and he was so nice. I went up and then started asking 10,000 questions. He came right over and helped me out. So Yoda, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me on.
Sure.
I remember pretty vividly when you came up to our booth. I think it was February or March. And so we were in the middle of obviously a lot of changes in inventory lab world. But quick introduction on myself. I'm Yoda. I'm the founder of Threecolts, founded Threecolts about 4 years ago. Prior to this, though, I was at Amazon for 5 years. So I was based out of their Seattle offices for 3, and then moved to the London office for 2 years. And in the Seattle office, I was working on North American expansion, so launching Canada, Mexico, as well as launching Amazon Fresh and Prime Now. And one of the cool things I think I got to experience there is actually being able to go to the warehouses and help set these up. And so have you guys been like inside of a warehouse before?
I have.
You have? Okay. I'm like, I haven't. We have so many where I live too. I feel like I need to just do one of the tours one of these times.
I really think you should, because it opens your eyes up to the inbound process, especially because lost inbound is like obviously a huge problem for sellers.
Yeah.
But I got a chance to see how they set up like case pack receive, pallet receive, small parcel receive, license plate receive. And the way they think about how they receive products and what the incentive structures are for a lot of the receivers makes it obviously difficult for kind of like multi-case items to go through. And so this is like the first time I started seeing all of these operational problems that FCs run into. And I would ask this like one FC manager, I'm like, what is that pile over there? And they're like, oh yeah, this is the pile that's like really hard to receive. So it collects and collects and collects. And one day they just donate it.
Wow.
And at the time I was like, what? Okay, whatever. And so fast forward, I joined their London team where I was rolling out their API throughout Europe. And I got a chance to talk to a lot of these API partners. Funny enough, many of them I ended up speaking to potentially for an acquisition through Threecolts. But one of the tools that like we ran into are these like reimbursement software tools. And I'm like, okay, what do you guys do? What is this? And then they're like telling me about like, it's because of like lost inventory, damaged warehouse, lost warehouse, whatnot. And like, I finally connected the two dots together like several years later where I'm like, oh my God, all of those donated goods were pre-received lost inbound that they were just dumping out.
Crazy.
But eventually, like after I left Amazon, I started a service business and eventually founded Threecolts with the sole objective of how do we make it more profitable for sellers to operate online. It's just like really hard as fees go up, as software tools expand and prices go up, all these kind of things that make it harder for a business to run. We just wanted to simplify. And fast forward 4 years, we have about 500 people worldwide. We've done about 23 acquisitions. We've bundled a few of our acquisitions into Seller 365. We'll have a few more for like the enterprise segment. We have also a subset of multi-channel tools that we're also including into the bundles. And so that's kind of a little bit about myself, the journey in Threecolts.
Crazy. Were you ever a seller on Amazon or you only just worked at Amazon?
I only worked at Amazon and actually primarily on the vendor side until kind of post Amazon is kind of when I got introduced to the seller side. And I got a chance to do a little bit of the services, advertising, and operations for some small sellers.
That's awesome. So when you guys did Threecolts originally, did you have your own standalone software or you went in going, hey, let's kind of gather kind of these ones that are leading the pack and bring them all as a all-in-one solution for everybody?
Yeah. So before we went out and thought to ourselves, like what to acquire, we actually figured out like, what is it? Like, who do we want to service? Because an Amazon seller base is actually quite vast.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. You can have like booksellers, like authors, merch, before you even get into like the seller space, which you have private label, you have resellers. And so what we mapped out was kind of a 2x3. And I was like, okay, here are private label brands and resellers. And there's small, medium, and large. And I put an X around small private label. One, because I thought Jungle Scout and Helium 10 did a phenomenal job servicing this customer base. And also, it's just a really hard customer market to service because oftentimes brands need to invest tens of thousands of dollars to go build product, produce it, ship it, then send it into a warehouse, and then sell it, then get paid. So the cash conversion cycle is really, really long. And so what we wanted to do was service really large brands and resellers. We just didn't think there were a lot of software tools that were like holistic, all-in-one, end-to-end for resellers. And so that's effectively what we wanted to target. And so the first couple acquisitions we did was, one was reimbursements and second was technical arbitrage. Those were the first two out the gates that we acquired. And from there, we continued to expand. We added in alerts, Feedback Wiz, a few others, which then culminated into an acquisition in 2023 of Inventory Lab. So that's now been about 2 years ago, where we acquired Inventory Lab, which helps us kind of complete that all-in-one experience for a reseller. But yeah, that's kind of like how we thought about it as we went through kind of like what we wanted to target. And as time has gone on, every venture-backed business eventually faces this terrible question, like, how do you go into enterprise? And so that's something that we had to address. And so all the learnings that we got from servicing resellers and sellers online just in general helped us build out our software suite for enterprise. And now we service customers like Samsung, L'Oreal, Keurig Dr. Pepper, Colgate. And so we do have really large customers that we service very similar. Everything from their version of reimbursements they call recoveries. They also need help with listing and multi-channel listing management. We service BMW this way, or Puma. And so we do cover kind of a pretty wide range, but it's fairly similar. It's just that the vendor central portal is just ever so slightly different to the seller central portal.
Yeah. We've learned a lot about that. Did you ever meet Diana at Prosper? Our friend Diana, I don't know if you've met her. No. She runs Sellers United. But she is kind of the queen of wholesale is what we call her, because she's been doing it since like 2000. So, I mean, she was doing Amazon, like when you had to still write labels by hand to customers. Like that's when she got her start. Like, it's kind of crazy. So she's talked a lot about Vendor Central in the community and with us, and kind of open our eyes, because when you don't realize all the pieces, of Amazon, like, because you think, oh, everything, like Amazon's actually just buying all this. No, they're not. They have companies that are helping them go out and get these customers. And that was really interesting, because I said, look, that's still like a third-party seller. That's still us, but just on a bigger scale.
Yeah. I actually used to work for a manufacturer. That's how I got introduced to Amazon, was because they used Vendor Central and they sold there. And that's when Amazon was one of those things that was like just coming out, and everybody's like, do we really want to buy here, or do we just want to stick with like Walmart.com? Or like, nobody was really buying online at that point in time. It was just like the one things that you couldn't find in the store or whatever. So that's when, way after Diana, but like probably in the middle of that is when I got experience in that. And it's something, it's interesting to see like the different aspects of how Amazon works out in your business.
100%. And it's funny because not too long ago, when I first started at Amazon was 2014. And the first trade show I went to find selection for the Canada marketplace, one person responded to me, was like, I thought Amazon only sold books.
Yeah. And
that's crazy to think that that's only 11 years ago.
Yeah. So I worked at that company. I started there in 2015. So it was in that frame.
Perfect,
Where it was like, I don't know why, but that's just not what people used it for. I had a friend who was really into like being up with the times, and she had a Prime account and she used Amazon, but she was the only person I knew at that time who had a Prime account. And now look, 10 years later.
Like, do I even go to a store anymore? No. Like,
right.
I might do a grocery pickup, but guess what? It's all still happened
online. Yeah.
Online, It's incredible how the evolution is so fast as well, because people don't realize this. But in 2014, they didn't even break out AWS as its own P&L line item for Amazon yet.
Wow.
And so it's just like the evolution over the 11 years has been so fast that we expect change, but the change at this rate has just been phenomenal. It's crazy. I don't think we've ever seen anything like this before.
I think that we as like on the reselling side, that's where we get frustrated because these changes come out and they're so like glitchy and they cause so many problems. But when you sit back and think of it from like a business perspective, it makes sense because of how fast things are moving. It's like, okay, let's roll it out, let's roll it out, let's roll it out without sometimes the proper like beta and testing and all that. But eventually, once they get it all worked out, it usually works in our benefit, usually.
Yeah. That evolution sometimes takes a little bit longer than it needs to, but yeah.
Yeah, 1000%.
Well, Morgan knows I complain all the time, like when something's just glitching out and everybody's like, what's happening? And my husband's a software engineer and I'm like, you guys, like he got in the back end. Do you realize that this program was actually Salesforce? Like he dove in and they built this. This is not what this was meant to be. Like, you know, especially like Walmart time, like that platform grew a little too fast for its britches. And so sometimes there's just, not sometimes, a lot of times there's a lot of glitches.
Yeah.
Speaking
sometimes they don't even consider some of like the customer base too, though.
No.
Which is I find to be actually very confusing because even with our conversations with Amazon specifically, they definitely build for the brand. I mean, they have the brand portal, they have brand registry, they have just a lot of brand oriented stuff in Seller Central. And when I talk to them, it's almost like they don't even consider the reseller use case, even though resellers make up more than half the top 10 sellers and more than half the top 100 sellers. I'm like, what are you talking about? Why?
Yes.
It's,
you feel our pain.
Yeah.
Yeah. 100%.
I was going to say, like, that's hard for you guys too, to provide solutions to people when they haven't even gotten their stuff situated. Like, how are you supposed to offer something easier when it's not fixed on that side? And I think you mentioned, because you guys have a very large like Facebook community, which I think is amazing because you guys answer like everybody's questions when they have actual questions. Like you have met with Amazon and you guys are trying to work together and give them that perspective, right?
Yeah, 100%. And I think the more I work with them and the more I kind of share a seller's story, they're more empathetic to the seller story, which is kind of funny because their core customer is the seller. But it's so easy for a company at that size with over 1 million people working for a company to be detached from the customer experience because they're not in the Facebook communities. They're not in the forums, right? They're building products that they think are building shareholder value. And now their orientation is a lot different than it used to be. And so I think we prepared actually a 6-page document on IP complaints and false IP complaints, right? A good example of this is like, why is it that someone can submit an IP claim or counterfeit without a test buy? What does that even mean? Why? The item is in your warehouse. How about you check if there's a counterfeit item in your warehouse, right?
Correct.
And instead you're like, they're putting small businesses at risk that could be hiring, 1 or 2 to dozens of people that now you have to think about, okay, how do I pay payroll, right? These are real people with real world impact that they don't realize that they're doing. And even the whole concept of counterfeit without a test buy should never exist. Yeah. And we also put together like a 6-page document on brain gating as well and how that creates uncertainty, right? Like Amazon effectively, weirdly enough, is like a government. They have 2 core constituents, the buyer and the seller. And by effectively shutting down accounts without any recourse, then creates uncertainty for a lot of different small business owners and figuring out how do I pay for the people that we hire locally. And these are the same small businesses that they tout as they're supporting. And so I think just like providing those documentation gets them to be ever so slightly more empathetic. That helps, I think, our case. They have gotten a few things out the door for us as a result of some of the requests that we sent over. And not 100% of stuff will obviously get completed because that's Amazon, but I feel like it's more impact than maybe screaming into the void of seller support.
Yeah, absolutely. So Jen mentioned Walmart a couple minutes ago. Are you guys gonna roll out anything for Walmart?
Yeah, we are. So we have started. We have profit analytics for Walmart. So everything from like you can integrate your store, look at all your numbers, your sales figures, your fees. But we are going to be rolling out Walmart for Inventory Lab, Tactical Arbitrage, and Smart Repricer later this year. And so all those teams, now that we've been able to get over the hump of the API change for Inventory Lab, the team can now move on. To new functions and features. And so Walmart will be next on the list.
Yoda, we're all like itching. Come on.
I told you, I said that across first. I said, if you guys can come out, you guys have Amazon locked in. If you can do Walmart, and we all only have to use one thing, I'm telling you, we will all drink the Kool-Aid because we are sick of having to manually do stuff. It is so tedious.
I mentioned in the community on Monday that we were going to be doing this interview with you. I've had 3 people DM me. Let me know what he says about Walmart. Let me know. We need an answer.
That's awesome. We actually only put that on the roadmap because of you, Jen. Had you not stopped by our Prosper booth, I don't think we would have pushed for Walmart as much as we did. I think that conversation kind of like in line. And after that conversation, we ended up speaking to the team at Walmart. We actually own a tool called ecommerce. I don't know if you guys are familiar with ecommerce.
Mm-hmm.
So we acquired ecommerce about, I want to say a year ago or so. And they've been kind of the biggest proponents for Walmart. They've been one of the biggest sponsors. They're one of Walmart's biggest partners. And so they've been helping us ramp up on a little bit of the development of Walmart. But we felt like, okay, yeah, Sed can handle some of this. But yeah, after that conversation, I'm like, okay, maybe Jen is onto something. We'll get soming going.
Sometimes I know things, you guys. Not always, but sometimes.
I'm so excited. See, you going to Prosper paid off.
Okay. See? I know. Well, because it was do I go? I'm not like, Emily with the social media following and people don't know my name. I'm just out here. I'm really an actual because there's so many people on social media. We have this conversation a lot, like that are out there and they're saying, this is how you sell, but they're not actually selling. And it drives me bonkers. And because I can tell by the information they're sharing that they're not an actual seller. And then there's people that are sellers that try to share information when they can, like the 3 of, you know what I mean? Especially Morgan and I, because we have a lot of children. And it's just, lives. It's hard to, be honest about it when you're still in it. And that is your income. Like that's how we're making money, is by being sellers. So, things to cut time down, make our lives easier. We are 1000% for.
Yes. And I love what
you think we could be doing to make it easier for you guys.
I told you one thing recently, and I think you said you were going to work on it. Do you want me to share it here?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, integration with vQuote.
Oh yeah.
That is actually the #1 requested feature.
Yes.
And so it is something that we will have to look into. I didn't realize, I thought vQuote was already integrated with Amazon. And so there must have been some like automated integrations. But
so it's a little bit weird that it almost has a lag. So like if you go back into your orders, you have to wait for that like statement period to close basically. And then it will kind of sync up what the cost of shipping was and place it back in the orders. So it almost like it needs to readjust like historical data to pull that back into like inventory lab. Because right now it's not, even when I've run like reports, it's not catching that piece for some reason. And a lot of us, that's where, we're also doing like Walmart, just because they give like such a big cash back. You can pull, especially those of us that are like big seller fulfilled order, order pushers. That's one piece of software that nobody has kind of integrated with yet. They've been pushing out some of their own stuff, but I don't like how clunky their platform is to pull numbers and stuff. So they have kind of a basic dashboard, but that's one thing for sure that would help.
From a Walmart point of view, I absolutely profit analytics, because me and Jen, I know, are doing it manually right now. I have tried almost every software out there, and in comparison to what I've been able to pull like manually, and they just, for whatever reason, do not line up. And it's like big, some of them are smaller than others, but some of them it's been like $900, $2,000, like off by the end of the week. So like for us being smaller sellers, that's a really big difference. So it's like, how can we, there's so many softwares that are out there, but it's like, none of them are just like getting that just right.
Yeah.
So definitely profit analytics, manually doing our numbers is a pain.
Yeah.
Have you tried FeedbackWiz Profit Analytics?
Have I tried what?
FeedbackWiz Profit Analytics.
I have not. That is one that I have not heard of.
So it comes as a part of Seller 365. And so we have 10 different applications, one of which is Feedback with Profit Analytics, and it integrates both Amazon and Walmart. The number one feedback that we actually have 300 Walmart sellers already integrated to Feedback with Profit Analytics. So people are using this, even though despite how bad we are at marketing that we have this for Walmart, people do use it. And one of the number one feedback points we actually got is, can we integrate IL COGS directly into Profit Analytics, because it's so good for just like day-to-day business intelligence. It's not like your fully fledged accounting, and IL accounting will continue to be suitable more from the accounting perspective. Eventually we'll have a balance sheet and a cash flow statement just to broaden out the accounting suite a little bit.
Right.
But from a pure analytics perspective, Feedback with Profit Analytics is what we have, and we'll love to get your feedback once you take a look at it.
Will do that this week, because I actually need to catch up on my numbers. So that I will.
We're happy to beta test what you got too. So
yeah, we are all about like when new software, we will beta them because we want them to be good.
Well, so, we will let you know when the Walmart functions and features start rolling out for beta.
That's super exciting, and just to have a tool like similar to Inventory Lab that'll just help you with your shipments, because using the Walmart platform is so clunky, and it's kind of like what Amazon used to be, just so clunky. It's slow, and Inventory Lab was always that thing that just sped that process up. And then you got the benefit of, like you were saying, adding the COGS and the accounting perspective all in one. So like, if that can be a thing, like I'm so excited, because it's been a journey on Walmart to say the least.
We have battle scars. Can you tell?
Man.
Morgan and I have been on, I think this is is it 4 for both of us, right? On Walmart? Or
I was going to ask, how long have you guys been selling on Walmart?
Three.
Okay. Yeah. I think this is now March was start of year 4 for me, or I'm sorry, May. So, cause I started like Amazon March and I started Walmart in May, and I was like one of the first to like in the community that started on Walmart. And so it's been a real journey.
Up and down.
No, well, and it's funny because people sometimes like compare it to what Amazon was, but it's so different because they have storefronts. So, people can just walk right in and return something, or they go in the store and now they found it for cheaper than what they got it for you. So like the returns on there is just insane. Actually, I finally made the presentation about Walmart returns, so I'm going to be sharing that with the group. Everyone's been asking me like how I manage the returns.
Jen is the return queen.
Yesterday. Yeah. Does anybody
do you have like a returns warehouse where you process it and then sell it onto eBay, or do you like reprocess it and send it back to Walmart?
It depends. So because sometimes, like especially if you are sending things into Walmart, which they call WFS, you can tell them again, like dispose of it, return it to you, and things come back and they're perfectly fine, and we can turn around and just send it back in. So I never have them destroy stuff. Same with like seller fulfilled. I have everything come back to me, because half the time nothing's wrong with it. It's again that the person like walked in the store, found it, or went into a grocery store, found it for cheaper or whatever, and they just don't want it, and I can return, just flip it again. I think Emily, if it's like under $10, she doesn't want it back, right?
Yeah.
Or 15, I forget. She has, so everybody can set different thresholds, but, and sometimes it's, I can just flip it on eBay, or I can go sell it on Amazon, like I just find what channel works best.
There's literally, out of the entire time that I've been selling on Walmart, everything that they send back saying that it's damaged, that they would have disposed, I can probably count on literally one hand the amount of times it's actually been damaged.
Yeah.
So like I'm a huge proponent on like getting it sent back, because we have like, man, I think last Q4 we had, I can't even remember the number, but the returns were crazy. We were talking about it, and all of it came back like half the stuff wasn't even out of the poly bag that we initially like put it in to send it off. So we're like, how is this damaged?
Their app, like if you go into Walmart app from the customer side and want to initiate a return, they only have 3 options. It's like damaged,
change mind,
change mind or no longer wanted, or
I I don't remember the other
The
one.
third. So like sometimes people will choose different things to see if they can keep it. Because if you buy it from Walmart directly and you say something is damaged, a lot of times they'll be like, no need to return it, just keep it. So you'll see like when you pull returns report, like somebody's opened a return 3 times because they're trying different ways to see if they can keep it and get it for free. So there's just a lot of fraud on the Walmart side that you just don't see on the Amazon side, because Amazon backs the sellers. You know, they have different things in place, like, you know, so what is it? Safety claims, A to Z claim. Like there's different ways that they kind of cover us, and Walmart doesn't do that. They side with the customer. So.
Well, also the customer base is very different between Walmart and Amazon, right? The median household income of an Amazon buyer, I think, is like 90,000 when they last did the research, and that's just not the median household income of Walmart shoppers.
Right.
Even Walmart.com shoppers is not nearly as high as what Amazon shoppers experience, and so as a result, you just get different behaviors amongst different groups of people. And so, but at the same time, you get a lot of organized fraud on something like Amazon. Right, which is kind of crazy. You run into scenarios where like bandits steal trucks or whatever, and then they sell them online at a price like way below. It's like the craziest stories. I'm like, I
think I just saw something on the news about that. Or is this real? Yeah, I was like, what? This is still happening? This is still a thing? This is insane.
Yeah, wild.
I know. Well, and Walmart too. It's funny. Are you planning to go to the Walmart conference in San Diego?
Yeah, in San Diego, right?
Yeah. Yes. Okay. So I went last year, and it was interesting because they claimed that their buyer on Walmart.com is like 35 to 45, and is what they say, like makes, I think, like about what the Amazon seller, it was like 80 to 90,000 a year. And I was like, would you like me to pull up my my messages from customers? Because this is definitely not somebody 30. That's my age group. That person that is emailing me is not in my age group. I can tell by the words they use. So, you know, but that's always it's a good conference. And then the way you meet with Amazon, Morgan and I have been part of that for Walmart, that we meet with them constantly to give feedback on things, the way that the platform looks, new programs. They're rolling out like their own seller forum soon, which I met with them about, which we'll see how that goes. Because I gave some pretty honest feedback. So I'm curious how that.
No comment.
Yeah. I was like, I don't know if this is a good idea.
It's it only can go one way, and that's not up.
Right. Literally.
Well, they were trying to have like a ranking system, like the more you responded, the higher you could get up on ranks. And I was like, this is a bad idea. Like the people that live on these platforms live for a ranking, and they're going to just put anything to get a ranking. Like, take it off. So I really hope they took it off.
You know what's funny about those seller forums is almost they should do the opposite of Reddit, which is like what gets downvoted the most. Because everything gets downvoted and not upvoted.
Yes.
Ugh.
And like, I don't know if you saw it. Man, I think it was a few months ago. Somebody had asked a question, and an Amazon employee replied and said like, retail arbitrage receipts weren't going to be allowed or something like that.
Yes.
On the forum, and everybody lost their mind.
I saw that.
Forums are not a good idea.
100%. And I think even moderation of like just communities is really difficult to have. I'm sure you guys like see this as like a community of like 10 people is actually quite wholesome. A community of 40 people is generally wholesome, and a community of 1,000 people is just like an extremely toxic experience.
Yes.
And so it's like funny, like how time, like the digital, like how you kind of maneuver through that, because we have about 70,000 people across all of our Facebook groups, and there are certain communities that are a lot more positive and helpful than others, and it's just like, how does that manifest itself over time? What do they post about? What do they align on? It's all super interesting. But sellers in the group, like on a Walmart seller forum, just sounds like a disaster.
Well, somebody gets burned and then just wants to burn everything down with them. So it's and I've seen that like on your guys' Facebooks, on like all the ones, because we keep saying, do we make a Facebook group? Do we really want to make a do we want to open that can of worms? Like,
so here's my opinion. As someone that has opened up a Facebook group that was killed in the past, that we revived in the form of an Inventory Lab Facebook group. I actually think you guys should. And I think the evolution of us learning about how to maintain a Facebook group, how to be engaged with the customers, I honestly don't think there is in any world that we would have successfully gone through a brick wall for sellers to get Inventory Lab up to the point that it has finally gotten up to without having that Facebook community there and having them honestly critique us. And obviously some of the comments were brutal, and there are certain things that you as a founder is just very painful to see. Right. And at the end of the day, it's like, it's funny because like I always made fun of like, why is Kevin Durant? Why does he care what other people have to say, right, online? But like now that we have a little bit of this, just like a droplet of what he has to deal with, it's like, well, yeah, it's painful, but at the same time, it's really good feedback for us to figure out, okay, what do we need to address? How do we need to communicate? How do we need to start blocking some of these communication paths for the customers we work with? And like, having Austin there with me and being able to kind of answer everyone's questions had actually increased our product velocity from our product side, because we got to connect the customer side to the product side a lot closer as a result of this.
That's awesome.
And so now our product velocity is a lot faster, the reliability is higher. And in general, that Facebook group is actually quite positive. I actually am seeing a lot of good stuff out of there and a lot of good suggestions and feedback now that we can now move on to. In a way that I think obviously was a little bit hard to see maybe in January, but
yeah, I was going to say the last couple months it definitely has done a switch where people like are giving feedback, like positive feedback, or they're giving good questions and things instead of just coming on to complain, because then it was like, wait, what is your problem? Did you open a case? You know, I always think of that, like we say that in the group too, like with Walmart, people will just come on and complain sometimes, and we're guilty of it too, but also we open cases. And that was the biggest takeaway from the conference last year, that they said, we don't know about these things until you open a case. Like you have got to have some kind of proof. And sometimes, yes, they close them and they don't answer, which you guys don't do that. I know you don't do that. But sometimes they close them, don't answer us. But then we can, guess what? Go back and be like, hi, so please see this case that you closed on me. I still have this problem, you know?
Yes, I shout from the mountaintops, like, tell them.
We are actually going to pause this episode here. We had so much to talk about in our interview with Yoda. It's actually going to be 3 separate episodes on our podcast. So tune in next week for part 2 to learn more with Yoda. Thanks.